Hi. Yeah, I've got to admit, I felt a little like I rushed through the last few pages of the syllabus. And so I thought we'd do a part two of the syllabus just to cover everything more carefully. So I hope you're watching this because this is still part of the syllabus and it needs to be talked about. So I left off on this page, basically. Number 8, students with disabilities who may need academic accommodation should discuss options with their professors during the first 2 weeks of class. I wanted to make really clear that this is true for every class here at Mesa College. Okay, it's in my syllabus, but it should be in every syllabus you get. Okay, and I work with the people in the DSPS office all the time, practically every semester, if not indeed every semester. And I think very highly of them. And if you are eligible for their services, please do not hesitate to use them. Especially in the time of COVID, we really need to make sure we get all the assistance and help we may need, even beyond what we might normally face in a regular face-to-face situation. Now, number 9 is about plagiarism. And I really want to make sure that this is understood, what plagiarism is. It says students are expected to have academic honesty in the pursuit of their academic goals as per Policy 3100. Now, Policy 3100 is a very, long policy, but I could reduce it down to 2 words, play nice. And the policy covers many different things, but one of the things it covers is plagiarism. Plagiarism is the act of claiming someone else's work as one's own and may show up in the following forms. A, verbatim copying without proper acknowledgement. This is easy to understand, right? You took somebody else's work and you submitted it as your own. Maybe it was something that you found online. Maybe it was something you paid for. Maybe it was something a friend wrote for you, or you hired somebody to write it for you. Anything like that is obviously an egregious form of plagiarism. Okay, and usually we'll get the most severe penalty available. B, paraphrasing without proper acknowledgement. Paraphrasing without proper acknowledgement is probably the most common form of what I call unintentional plagiarism. Unlike a student who's buying a paper, this typically happens when students are doing research. They're not being particularly very careful about what they bring into their paper and differentiating between their own thoughts and ideas and the thoughts and ideas that they get from others. Paraphrasing means you change the words. In other words, you're not quoting. Most of my students who quote understand that you need to acknowledge the quote. It's a very, very rare paper that I get where somebody uses quotations without proper acknowledgement. But paraphrasing means you've changed the words around a little bit. Well, that doesn't make it yours. You still have to acknowledge where you got it from. Just as a general rule of thumb, if it's information that you learned in the process of writing your paper, you should document it. C, putting together a patchwork paper from diverse sources without acknowledging the sources, what we call a cut and paste job. And the out-and-out theft is someone else's significant ideas without proper acknowledgement. So somebody's got this great idea, and you think, that is a great idea. I'm going to use it. Well, you can use it. Just remember to acknowledge where you got it from. One key to understanding plagiarism is the student's intentions are not necessarily the problem. A student can be guilty of plagiarism without intending to cheat on an assignment. As I said, if you're buying a paper, you obviously are attempting to cheat. On the other hand, if you're paraphrasing without proper acknowledgement, maybe this is just simply what we might call sloppy or inadequate documentation. But in either case, you'll still fail the assignment. Disclaimers like I wasn't here the day you discussed in-text notes, or I never understand what to note and what not to note are not valid and will not lessen the student's penalty. Okay, so it's very important. Those found guilty of plagiarism may receive an F or a 0 on the assignment. That's pretty much a given. You can count on that. Suspension from the class, which may happen for the most severe cases. an F in the course, which may be a consequence of getting zeros, and or expulsion from the college, which I would not handle. That would be handled by a dean, as per procedure 3100.3. And trust me, we never want to see procedure 3100.3. Now, how do we avoid all this? Well, that's why we have MLA. Now, I've mentioned MLA a number of times. It is on our list of recommended texts for this class. It's not a required text, but I do have a handout, or handouts plural actually, with MLA. And I do some very specific instruction in MLA because I want all of my students to have the basics. Now, does this mean you'll be an expert? Probably not. Okay, probably not. And people make mistakes that happen, and that's not necessarily a big issue. It becomes a big issue when, of course, it's incompetent, overly sloppy, or just not simply there. Okay? Number 10, I did already mention that. Please contact me by district email or through the message system on Canvas. I will try to get back to you as quickly as possible. At least 48 hours during the weekdays and 72 on the weekends. My goal, however, to be much faster with the feedback, usually within a day, ideally. Now, assignment due dates, those are easy enough to see right now, and you can put those in your little planner, whatever that might be. I wanted to also talk about this page, Standards for English 101 Essays. This probably needs an entire video by itself, and maybe I will make one for you. But let me just do the introduction to it first. The main purpose of English 101 is to help you learn to write expository and argumentative prose, in other words, our essay writing, in such a way that a mature, thoughtful, educated reader will pay respectful attention to your ideas. The following criteria may guide your development as a writer. Please note these criteria are concerned only with measurable achievement, not with the amount of effort that goes into writing the essay. Now here, let me just drag out my soapbox, because it's time for me to talk about an issue in education. And that's this word right here, effort. Let's be blunt. I don't grade effort. I grade papers. Okay? I grade the essay. I don't grade the effort. If you try really hard and you produce something that's not very good, it doesn't really matter that you tried really hard. What matters is you didn't produce something very good. Now that sounds maybe overly negative, but think of it this way. When you go to a doctor, do you want to see a doctor who tries really hard? Or do you want a doctor who knows her practice, who knows what she's doing? Right? You want somebody who knows what they're doing, right? Isn't that what we all want? You wouldn't get into an airplane with a pilot who tries really hard. You get into an airplane with a pilot who's very competent and has passed all the standards and goals and tests that need to be done. You wouldn't want to drive over a bridge that was constructed by a civil engineer who tried really hard but still didn't know what to do. I could go on and on with examples like this. It seems strange that in English, suddenly effort is privileged and accomplishments are not. Well, I reject that. Okay? Keep this in mind. Those things that are valuable, worthwhile, of quality, are often the result of a lot of hard work. Okay, it's not that hard work doesn't play a role. In fact, hard work plays a very big role. But hard work by itself is not the goal. The goal, in our case, is to write a good essay. Now, the rest of these grades, these standards, are probably too complex for me to talk in the limited time I have on this 15-minute video. But I will say this. I begin with the CSA, and it says a CSA is a competent work, a success. Okay, in other words, if you get a C on an essay, You did a lot right. I'm going to give you a moment here, a true confession. Okay. When I was in high school, probably not surprising, I got pretty good grades without trying particularly hard in many cases, to be honest about it. I went off to college, a real college, hard college. And I tell you what, the first assignment I got, I thought I did a great job with it. I was amazingly good, at least I thought. And when the teacher came back to the class to hand the papers out, the teacher said there were only 2 A's in the whole class. And I, of course, thought, well, I had one of those 2 A's. I did not. I got a B+. That's right, folks. You're being taught English by a teacher who, as a student, got a D+ on his first essay. So if you get a D, don't come to me and complain. We're partners, we're comrades, we're brothers in arms. Because that's where I sat on my first college level essay, D+. But I'm also here to show you that essay writing can be learned. And yes, I eventually learned to write A essays completely, consistently. And that's why I think when I hear somebody complain about getting a B on their first essay, or even a C on their first essay, I tend not to be overly sympathetic, because my sympathy is with the D students. Those students who came and all of a sudden they found out that what they thought they knew really well, maybe they didn't know as well at all. I blame a culture of grade inflation, so forth and so on. But here's what I think. If you're a D student today, at the beginning of the semester, you can be an A student by the end of the semester. I know because I've done it, and I've had many students of mine do it. So keep that in mind. Hard work is important. Achievement is more important. This last page is a template. This is MLA format for how your essays should be typed up. This reflects what's in the MLA handbook, just in case you're wondering where I got it from, and from the MLA documentation website. Keep that in mind also. You see that everything has 1-inch margins, top, bottom, left, and right. It's all double spaced. It has a very readable font, and the font style for this one is called Times New Roman. This is in 12. You can also go to 11. 10's a little too small. It is left justified, which means that the margin here on the left is smooth. The margin on the right side is what we call ragged, because it doesn't throw in any extra spaces, so it's really a true margin. Your name, right? You write your name here, my name, class, due date for the material. In the header, you should put your last name and the page number. Hopefully, being Generation Z students, you're capable of doing headers. I hope so anyway, because I'm not the best person to ask for those things. The title should be centered on its own line. Now, when we do titles, they should be content related. In other words, you don't write chapter 1 essay, chapter 2 essay, chapter 3 essay, or something like that. You write about what's in the essay. Okay. Something that is an attention grabber, but also reflects the content of the material. Okay. It's pretty simple, actually. Now, a title should be centered, and the first and last words are capitalized, and all significant words in between. The insignificant words are not. It is in the same type size, same font. Do not underline it. Do not bold it. Do not italicize it. Okay, don't put it into 24 point or something crazy like that. Please make sure you include a word count at the end of your essay. That is a requirement. Okay, because that's one of the minimum requirements for assignments. And boom, we're out of time again. I hope you've enjoyed this part 2.